coming Sunday against who? The Las Vegas Raiders. One of the teams that repeated, I reported on this earlier this morning, they repeatedly passed on Shedeur in the 2025 draft. Now, majority owning Tom Brady, who has text words of encouragement to Sanders in the past, was part of that decision. Now, general manager Andrew Berry made the selection, and now in late November, Sanders get his chance to start.
Like he was a good, solid prospect at the most important position. We felt like it got to a point where he was probably mispriced, relative to the draft. Really the acquisition cost was pretty light, and it's a guy that we think can outproduce his draft slot. So I wouldn't say it's any more than that. Mary Kay, I think obviously Shedeur has kind of grown up in the spotlight. But our expectation is for him to come in here and work and compete. Nothing's been promised. Nothing will be given. I may hesitate to characterize it as a blockbuster.
Don't skip a single second of this video. And if this story touches your heart, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments. Where are you watching from? Let's begin. So, when I hear Andrew Berry sit there in front of the mic and calmly say, I wouldn't call it a blockbuster, the acquisition cost was pretty light. I'm just sitting here like, bro, what are we doing? You don't get to call it not a blockbuster when that same kid you downplayed is walking out there this Sunday as your starting quarterback. You don't get to shrug it off like it's some casual move when the entire franchise is about to rest on his shoulders for 4 quarters. Because let's be real, if you've been paying attention to Cleveland all year, this front office has been ducking the real conversation. They've been hiding behind coach speak, injury reports, vague updates, and now, all of a sudden, when Shedeur Sanders is finally about to trot out there as QB1, we're acting like this is just another lineup change? Come on, this is not just another transaction. This is a crossroads moment for the Browns, for Barry, and for every single person who said, this kid wasn't worth the risk. And look at the timing. Late November, season on the line. The AFC is a mess. The playoff picture is crowded, and Cleveland's offense has been searching for somebody, anybody, to give them a pulse. You don't hand the keys to a rookie this late in the year unless you're out of excuses and out of time. This is desperation meeting belief. This is necessity crashing into opportunity. And it's not like he's facing some random bottom feeder. No. He's going up against the Las Vegas Raiders, one of the teams that looked at his tape, sat in draft rooms, talked it out, and still said, nah, we're good. They passed on him multiple times. While a lot of analysts were calling him one of the most polarizing prospects in the class, they decided the risk wasn't worth the reward. Now that same team has to watch him walk out as an NFL starter, stare across the field, and answer a simple question. Did we screw this up? That's why this moment is so wild. On one side, you have Barry trying to sound calm, measured, reasonable about the pick. On the other side, you've got this storm building around Shedeur's debut, fans starving for hope, media circling like sharks. Every camera pointed at a 5th-round rookie who's been forced to earn everything in silence while the people who drafted him keep quiet in public. And make no mistake, this game is not just about stats, it's about receipts. If Shedeur lights it up, it's a slap in the face to every scout, every exec, every talking head who doubted him. If he struggles, the same people who downplayed him will jump out the window to say, see, we told you. That's why this debut feels less like a start and more like a verdict. 4 quarters. That's all it is on paper. 60 minutes of football. But inside those 60 minutes, careers can flip, reputations can crumble, and an entire narrative can change forever. And for Shedeur Sanders and Andrew Berry, this isn't just a game against the Raiders. This is the night the NFL decides what it really thinks of both of them. He didn't just wake up one morning and become the Browns' starting quarterback. This rise didn't happen overnight. It was a slow burn, a stubborn climb, and honestly, one of the most confusing draft journeys we've seen in years. Because let's talk about it. Shedeur Sanders was never supposed to fall to the 5th round. Not with his production, not with his poise, not with his resume. And yet, somehow, team after team after team stared at his tape, listened to the noise, bought into the narratives, and passed. The slide wasn't just surprising, it felt personal. And every fan who watched that draft knows exactly what I mean. You had scouts calling him raw, analysts saying he needed time, people acting like he was some long-term developmental project instead of a quarterback who literally carried Colorado on his back for 2 straight seasons. Meanwhile, the same teams that doubted him were out there taking swings on quarterbacks with half the pocket presence, half the football IQ, and none of the proven leadership he showed every Saturday. How does that make sense? How does a player with that level of command fall into day 3? And here's the part nobody wants to talk about. The Raiders were one of those teams. Tom Brady, yes, that Tom Brady, sat in on those evaluations. The GOAT looked at Shedeur and said, pass. And for a lot of young quarterbacks, that's a moment that crushes confidence. But for Shedeur, that's fuel. Because while everyone else was focused on his last name, the Browns were focused on his game. They saw value where others saw noise. They didn't see a project. They saw a competitor. They saw a kid who played behind one of the worst offensive lines in college football and still found ways to make plays. Calm in chaos, eyes downfield, accuracy on the move. You can't teach that. That's not hype. That's mechanics, discipline, and football instinct. And the moment he stepped into Cleveland's quarterback room, the tone shifted. You had veterans in that building saying, okay, this kid is different. You had coaches realizing he processed faster than the scouting reports claimed. While the media kept saying he needed time, the people actually in the building saw a quarterback who carried himself like he'd already been here. Not loud. Not flashy, just consistent, professional, prepared. And that's what frustrates me as a fan. Why did he need an injury? Why did he need desperation circumstances for the Browns to give him real reps? Why did it take this long for everyone else to see what felt obvious to anyone who watched him with an unbiased eye? But here's the thing. Shedeur didn't climb because someone handed him anything. He climbed because he earned it. Inch by inch, rep by rep, meeting by meeting. And now he's here, not because of hype, not because of a name, but because every time he got a crack in the door, he kicked it wider. This rise wasn't luck, it was work. And now the entire league is about to see exactly what Cleveland saw from the start. They always say every rookie quarterback faces pressure, but with Shedeur Sanders, it wasn't pressure. It was a full-blown avalanche. From the moment his name hit the draft board, the critics came flying in like they'd been waiting for this kid to slip. And the loudest voices weren't even talking about his game. They were talking about his last name, his watches, his confidence, the primetime effect. Everything except the actual football he put on tape. You had analysts questioning whether he could push the ball deep, whether his frame could hold up, whether he benefited from a system, as if Colorado's offensive line wasn't getting him hit every other play. It's wild how selective people get when they want to tear somebody down. They preach competition level, but ignore the throws he made under duress. They question arm talent, but forget he carried an entire offense with broken protection. They downplay the poise, the reads, the accuracy, because it doesn't fit the narrative they built before the season. And that's the part that frustrates me most. The conversation never felt fair. It felt predetermined. But it wasn't just the outside noise. Inside that Cleveland locker room, the pressure was different, quieter, heavier. When you're a rookie quarterback with a legendary father, every rep is being judged on 2 levels, what you did and what people assume your dad influenced. Teammates are watching, coaches are analyzing every hiccup, every adjustment, every misread. And when you walk in with the Sanders name stitched across your shoulders, there's this unspoken expectation. Prove you're not just riding your dad's legacy. Prove you belong. And the thing is, Shedeur didn't walk in trying to be loud or flashy. He walked in trying to fit in, trying to earn respect one red at a time. But don't get it twisted. Every throw he made in practice carried more weight than the ones the other rookies made. Every mistake echoed louder. Every success was met with, yeah, but... That's a different type of pressure. That's pressure you can't measure with stats. And then we get to the part that blows my mind. Andrew Berry's silence. The same general manager who pulled the trigger on drafting Shedeur. The same guy who said the acquisition cost was light. The same executive who supposedly believed in him enough to stake a mid-round pick on him. Suddenly, nowhere to be found. Radio silent. Off the grid when the rookie he drafted is stepping into one of the biggest moments of the season, and I'm sorry. Somebody has to say it. Where's the leadership? Where's the accountability? Where's the support for your guy? You can't draft him, stash him, hype up his long-term upside, then hide when it's time to stand next to him publicly. That's not how real leaders operate. That's not how you build trust in a locker room. It sends a message, whether the Browns want to admit it or not. And the message is, Shedeur is on his own. But here's the crazy thing. He hasn't complained once. He hasn't fired back. He hasn't tried to control the narrative. While the critics scream, while the media nitpicks, while the front office stays quiet, Shedeur has just worked quietly, consistently, relentlessly. And that's what sets the stage for what comes next. Because the critics aren't going anywhere, the pressure won't let up, and the spotlight on Sunday is going to be ruthless. It's going to be loud. It's going to be unforgiving. But sometimes, that's exactly how legends are born. You can always tell which young quarterbacks are built for this league, and it's never just by what they do on Sundays. It's what they do when nobody's watching. And with Shedeur Sanders, that's the part that kept leaking out of Cleveland all season. The little stories, the quiet details, the things that never make headlines but always make quarterbacks. Because while everybody else was arguing about his draft slot, or his last name, or his flash, this kid was in the building every single day with an iPad tucked under his arm like it was glued there. First one in meeting rooms, last one out. Walking from office to office, not waiting for coaches to chase him down, hunting for answers, hunting for clarity, hunting for growth. He wasn't QB1. He wasn't even QB2 at times, but he carried himself like the guy who was one snap away, one call away, one opportunity away from taking over the entire operation. And that hit different with the people inside the building. Kevin Stefanski noticed it immediately. Every gap between practices, every pocket of downtime, Shedeur was right there beside him, asking about fronts, rotations, blitz looks, how to attack man versus match, how to adjust protections. Rookie quarterbacks usually tiptoe around that stuff. Shedeur didn't. He leaned into it. He studied like a starter long before he ever became one. And that's how you earn a locker room. Not with speeches or swagger, but with consistency, with intention, with habits. At first, guys didn't know what to expect. Is he a spotlight kid? Is he just here for the cameras? But week by week, rep by rep, the perception shifted. Veterans started seeing him staying after practice with the receiver they just signed off the practice squad so they could run timing routes. They saw him sitting alone with the playbook when everyone else was decompressing. They saw a rookie who wasn't trying to be Dayon's kid. He was trying to be Cleveland's quarterback. And that's when respect shows up. Quietly, gradually, but powerfully. Then came the flashes, the stuff that makes coaches sit up straight in film rooms, the quick processing on intermediate concepts, the accuracy rolling out to his right and firing a dart on the sideline, the composure in the 2-minute drill when everyone else is frantic and he looks like he just took a deep breath, the calm pocket presence despite bodies collapsing around him, something you either have or you don't. And he's had it since day one. Those weren't lucky throws. Those were quarterback throws. Those were NFL throws. You could see the potential simmering under the surface every time he touched the field, just waiting for the moment to boil over. And that's why this rise doesn't feel accidental. It feels earned, built, layered, like we've been watching a foundation being poured brick by brick, meeting by meeting, rep by rep. The NFL doesn't hand out opportunities. It reveals who's prepared for them. Shedeur didn't get his shot early, but now that it's finally here, you can feel something bigger in the air. This doesn't feel like a kid getting a chance. This feels like destiny meeting preparation. And Sunday is where those two collide. There are NFL games, and then there are NFL moments. And what's waiting for Shedeur Sanders on Sunday isn't just a game. It's a moment, a statement, a crossroads where everything he's carried, everything he's worked for, everything he's been doubted for, finally collides on one field against the one team that told him he wasn't worth the pick. This is the Raiders, the franchise that had multiple shots to take him, the team tied to Tom Brady's evaluation, Brady himself looking at Shedeur and saying, "Not our guy." If you don't think that matters to a competitor, you don't understand quarterbacks. This is revenge layered inside opportunity, legacy wrapped inside pressure. It's not personal, except it absolutely is. Because this matchup is bigger than depth charts and rookie timelines. This right here, this is a narrative test. This is the NFL deciding what they think of Shedeur Sanders, and Shedeur deciding he doesn't care. This is scouts being forced to recheck their notes. This is front offices questioning old assumptions. This is analysts suddenly scrambling to rewrite takes they delivered with full confidence back in April. This is the kind of game that flips the conversation in one night. And here's the part that gets me fired up. No matter how this goes, Shedeur wins. If he goes out there and lights it up, 250 yards, a couple touchdowns, command of the offense, the league wakes up instantly. Every highlight show, every podcast, every GM who passed on him, they will all have to address what they just saw. That's when narratives crumble. That's when fifth-round pick becomes steal of the draft. That's when a rookie becomes a problem for defensive coordinators. But even if he struggles, and let's be real, rookies struggle, it still works in his favor. Because this isn't a kid who hides. This isn't a kid who folds under pressure. This is someone who takes the hit, gets back up, and comes back even sharper. This is someone who's already survived criticism louder than anything the NFL can throw at him. Struggle just becomes part of the arc, part of the growth, part of the story that makes the rise even stronger. Because this isn't really about Sunday. Not entirely. This is about what Sunday represents. The beginning of something bigger in Cleveland. Something dangerous, something exciting, something the city hasn't felt in a long time. A future where the Browns don't just hope they have a quarterback, they know they do. A future where a rookie with an iPad, a chip on his shoulder, and a work ethic passed down from a Hall of Famer becomes the face of a franchise desperate for stability. And I'm telling you right now, this debut won't just introduce Shedeur Sanders to the NFL. It might introduce the NFL's next superstar. This isn't hype. This isn't exaggeration. This is the natural result of talent meeting preparation under the brightest lights possible. This isn't a moment. It's a warning. Believe now. Because the era starts Sunday. And when the dust settles, when the cameras shut off and the world realizes what they just watched, don't say you weren't told. This moment could be historic. And Shedeur Sanders is walking straight into it.